Hello, welcome to another edition of Marine Biologist Reviews. My name is Solomon DeMello, and I will be reviewing marine biologists. Now, before we begin, I would like to do a quick shout out to the Phoenicians. They are the ethnicity that originated around the Mediterranean Sea that invented sailing and were the first people to start sailing the seas on record. Now the way I will be scoring these marine biologists is a scale of 1 through 10, 1 being the lowest, 10 being the highest. And I will scale them on attributes such as their morality, where they actually contributed to marine sciences, as well as my own personal bias and what I like about them. So let's get into this video. So let's start this video off with the father of marine biologists, Aristotle. Now, Aristotle was the first person to look into the sea and observe and study the creatures that were in there. He also coined the term for a creature giving live birth, viviparous, and creatures that lay eggs, oviparous. So overall, I would give Aristotle a 7 out of 10. Even though he did start marine biology, and I would say that he was a pretty good marine biologist himself, at the time there wasn't a lot of resources at his disposal, so he couldn't go in-depth on one thing, and he was kind of a jack-of-all-trades. But since he did start marine biology, and that was the person who began observing these creatures, I mean, you gotta put him pretty high up. On to our next biologist, Pliny the Elder. Pliny the Elder was a naturalist in the Roman times who was also an observer of nature. That's what a naturalist is. His biggest contribution to marine science was his oceanography, where he did map a good portion of the Mediterranean Sea. As well as, on his part, he found a bunch of marine animals that could be used as medicine. And those are mostly his accomplishments. I would have to give Pliny the Elder a 9 out of 10. 9 out of honestly, a lot of this is my personal bias, because I think naturalism is a really cool idea in theory. And I believe that it's underappreciated, the fact that people could just walk out into the world and observe nature. And even though no one really cares about that, I guess, I feel that the fact that he did it and that he was able to do it was really cool. Overall, he did make contributions to marine biology by, discovering fish that could be used as medicinal treatments. Although I have to say I couldn't give him a 10 out of 10, mainly because that by finding fish that can be used as medicinal treatments, it also can lead to overfishing and a lot of problems that we have today. So, really, it's kind of a double-edged sword there. Alright, now we're on to James Cook. So, James Cook was more of an oceanographer, if anything. He traveled around the world twice and mapped a bunch of uncharted waters, which are pretty good to him. Honestly, I'd have to give James Cook about a 6 out of 10. Wasn't a super inspiring marine biologist. A lot of his achievements were oceanography and mapping uncharted waters, which is pretty cool. But honestly, if we're talking about marine biologist reviews, not really explorer reviews, he's kind of lower on the spectrum. So I have to give him a 6 out of 10. All right. Now we have Charles Darwin. So Charles Darwin is most famously credited with discovering the idea of evolution by natural selection. And that is that creatures have adaptations which eventually lead to creating a whole new creature once you have enough of them. Kind of a rough explanation. But honestly, he didn't even care about that theory much, about publishing it that much, because he wanted to just study barnacles, which, kudos to him, he knows what he wants. And so those are the things he's really big for, which was the theory of evolution by natural selection. Now, honestly, I think Charles Darwin is another 6 out of 10. Sure, he did create the theory of evolution through adaptation, which I think is great, and I am a big fan of evolution. And honestly, I love the fact that he just decided to study barnacles for a living, because he found that way more interesting than his own theory on evolution. But the reason I have to knock him down so many points was probably because he had a whole theory about how, let's just say he believed that, there was a superior race, and that he was a part of the superior race, and that it was kind of his job to subjugate the other. he was kind of a bit of a racist, so, honestly, on the whole morality thing, he falls pretty short, but his accomplishments marine biology-wise, kind of raise him up pretty far, so, 6 out of 10. Now we will be talking about Edward Forbes. So Edward Forbes was a British Navy man and marine biologist who ended up studying a lot on mollusks and sea stars. Now, the biggest thing that he did was create the azoic theory, which is the idea that the further you go down, variety and amount of marine creatures decreases, and that below 550 meters, there was no life that could live that low. Now, of course, he is wrong, because modern inventions we have today allow us to go down to those depths, and, there's an abundance of life down there. So, even though he did, try his best creating a theory, it was wrong, which, is kind of what happens in the scientific world, right? Honestly, I'd give him about a 7 out of 10. 7 out of 10, mainly because, he tried. Also, he did do some good work on mollusks and starfish, so you gotta give him that. Sir Charles Wyville Thomson is probably one of the better marine biologists on this list, I'd have to say. He traveled to all the oceans, discovering a bunch of new species that were actually thought to be extinct. He also did a bunch of deep-sea diving expeditions that led him to find that deep ocean temperatures weren't as consistent as everyone thought they were, and that created the idea for that there was oceanic currents that moved the water around. So I would give Sir Charles Thomas. Okay. I would give Sir Charles Wyville Thomas a 10 out of 10, based on his research alone and the fact that he contributed so many interesting discoveries to marine biology. The fact that he thought that there was oceanic current movement, that he did some deep sea exploration, to the fact that he's just so well traveled, and he's traveled all over the world. So I give him a 10 out of 10 for those reasons. This man is an ichthyologist who just created the Museum of Natural History. His name is Louis Agassiz. Now, Louis Agassiz was an ichthyologist, which is the study of fish, and he actually has contributed to creating a lot of classifications for fish today, and that's usually what he's accredited to. So I'd have to give him about a 7 out of 10. He did some really good work, and you gotta respect that. Overall, though, doesn't really stand out. But I think he did good work, and for that I would give him he gets a pretty high score. Alexander Agassiz was the son of Louis Agassiz, and he was also an ichthyologist as well as a naturalist. He did do some work in marine zoology, but overall he doesn't have a lot of things that are really notable, except for creating a copper mine, which was a lot of stuff I found on him was him creating a copper mine. But overall, he doesn't have as many notable achievements as some of the other people on this list, so I'd probably have to put him at a 4 out of 10. He did some good work, but overall, not super interesting, and doesn't really leave much of an impact on you. Victor Henson was a German zoologist who pushed the Prussian government into studying the ocean more. He coined the term plankton, as well as discovering the Henson duct, which was a part of our inner ear. He has a lot of notable achievements, especially doing a lot of dives, and actually being the head for most of those dives in the Baltic, Atlantic, and Mediterranean seas. He coined the term plankton and was a planktonologist, doing a lot of good study there, as well as pushing the Prussian government to study the ocean. And they actually, when Prussia was a country, created their own sort of department of ocean studies, in a way. It was called something different, but I can't remember. Now, honestly, with Victor's so many notable achievements, I have to give him a 10 out of 10. Not only did he do a lot of interesting work with plankton, he also pushed the Prussian government into studying oceans more, as well as, doing some, normal biology stuff and, finding the Henson duct. And just with all these notable achievements, it's hard for me to not give him a 10 out of 10, with being such an outstanding person. Now we've come to Fridtjof Nansen. So Fridtjof Nansen was a man with an awesome mustache who tried to find the Northwest Passage. So his idea was that he tried to get his ship deliberately stuck in the Arctic, believing that the currents would carry him to the North Pole and then south to Greenland. However, this didn't end up working out because there was no Northwest Passage, and so he got stuck there for days. Honestly, Fridtjof Nansen was a really cool explorer and did a lot of interesting studies on ocean currents. And so, for all those achievements, I would give him an 8 out of 10. The reason he doesn't go higher was because I feel that, it was kind of dangerous to do the whole Northwest Passage expedition. But other than that, his resume is really detailed, and he has a lot of achievements under his belt. William Beebe was a marine scientist as well as an engineer who just wanted to study the ocean more. He was someone who created the bathysphere, which was the first deep-sea diving device. Now, honestly, with his achievements, I gotta give William Beebe 9 out of 10. I think the bathysphere was an interesting invention, and not only that, he was way ahead of his time in a whole bunch of other stuff too. His engineering skills were pretty insane, and the fact that he was able to create a deep-sea diving vessel and then actually go down and visit the deep sea and go places where no man has gone before to study fish is really inspiring and I think interesting. So for that reason, I gotta give him a 9 out of 10. Now we have Sir Alister Hardy. Sir Alister Hardy was a British zoologist who did a lot of work on zooplankton studies, and he also created the aquatic ape theory. Now, the aquatic ape theory was the idea that that we evolved from apes that were more aquatic because basically because of competition for food and other resources. It ended up driving us to the ocean. And then that way we developed more aquatic features, such as hairlessness was one of the examples listed. I don't know much about the theory to take a stance. I know it's very controversial in the scientific community, but honestly, I really probably won't use it as a factor. But overall, I think Sir Alister Hardy is a good 6 out of 10. He did a lot of good work, and I definitely respect that, as well as his zooplankton studies. The aquatic ape theory is a bit sketchy, but honestly I don't know much about it to see if it is plausible or not. But overall 6 out of 10, nothing that blew me away with his accomplishments, nothing that really interested me. I think zooplankton is a cool thing to study, and I definitely respect that that's what he chose to study, but overall I think 6 out of 10 is where I stand on him. The next pusher in marine science I will be talking about is Emmanuel Gagon. Now, he is the co-developer of the Aqualung. The Aqualung was the predecessor to the modern scuba equipment we have today, and the first device that allowed people to actually breathe underwater. Not actually breathe underwater, but canisters of oxygen to their back, and you people probably get it. But basically, Emil Gagon co-developed the Aqualung, which is one of the greatest tools in marine biology today, which allows people to observe, marine creatures longer, as well as actually go down there with them and get a closer look at what they're actually doing. So I feel that because of this, Emil Gagon co-developing the Aqualung, I believe that gives him at least a 8 out of 10. I think he's a good 8 out of 10 just because of this great engineering feat that he created in creating the Aqualung. Next we have Jacques Cousteau, who also was a co-developer for the Aqualung. Now, honestly, Jacques Cousteau wanted to create the Aqualung just so he could take pictures underwater for longer, which I think is pretty interesting. Overall, not really a marine biology feat, or wanting to take pictures underwater, that is. Well, I guess. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, I retract that statement. He actually did do. Being able to take pictures underwater has insanely helped marine biology. He also created the first underwater camera that would actually function and work underwater, as well as co-developing the Aqualung. So honestly, I'd give Jacques Cousteau 7 out of 10. The reason he's lower than Emile Gagnon is because he got a lot of publicity, and I feel that, Emmanuel Gagnon, I think he deserved to win at least one. So, in this marine biology video, he's at least, one step higher than Jacques Cousteau. So, you gotta give him that. Bob Ballard is a deep-sea explorer that discovered hydrothermal vents as well as finding the wreckage of the Titanic. So Bob Ballard is probably a pretty good achieving scientist on this list. I feel the fact that he discovered hydrothermal vents, which are insanely interesting. Those are just cracks in the earth that, cracks in the crust that have the mantle under them that almost nothing can live in except for certain bacteria and other, microscopic organisms. I feel the fact that he discovered that, as well as his groundbreaking discovery of the wreckage of the Titanic, puts him pretty high up on this list. So I feel that, he deserves at least a 9 out of 10, and with all his achievements, that's really, speaking for him. So, 9 out of 10, that's where I stand on Bob Ballard. Alright, that is the end of the list of marine biologists. Honestly, not a lot of low ones, because, why would I include someone who was, like a 2 out of 10 marine biologist? I thank you for watching, and have a good time.